welcome to a new Make Happiness podcast episode. This week, Alex and I are going to be talking about the Arrowhead 135. It is an ultra endurance race that takes place in the northern Minnesota, specifically International Falls. It's right on the border of Canada, and it is a very hard race.
Yeah, there's a lot of elevation in this one. What was it, like 5,000, 6,000 feet of climbing or something like that?
I think it was closer to 7. It was like six and a half.
A lot of hills, and they're all punchy, steep climbs. So even when it's nice out, the course is insanity.
Well, and International Falls is like record-breaking.
That's Tower.
Oh.
The finish is in Tower, Minnesota, yeah, and they've got the record coldest temps in the U.S.
So they have like negative 40 degrees in like most winters.
And colder, yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, the weather was nice to us this year.
Yeah, I felt like we got cheated a little bit with this year because it was it was a warm year.
Well, just means we got to go back.
Get the real experience.
Yeah, or attempt.
So let's talk about kind of the race and explain, all the like different requirements you have to do just to get into it.
Right. Well, it's a winter ultra. You can either ski, bike, or run for the 135 miles. Just to get into it is kind of tough because they cap the registration at, I don't know,
like 160 this year.
Yeah, somewhere around there, and that's among all three disciplines, right?
Yeah.
So they try to keep it lower count on the racers just so that way it maintains solitude on the trail. They want you to be alone. Ken, the race director, said multiple times at the race meeting, like, if you want to, like, please drop out, like, keep the finish rates low. Like, I encourage you to not finish this race. Like, they're just, even the guys on the snowmobiles are like, yeah, I got a warm sled here for you. We can just take you back to the finish. And it's like, stop it. Quit it. But yeah. And so for the race, there's a lot of gear you have to cross the finish line with, as well as just getting into it to register. Before you get to that point, you have to have number of qualifying races, whether it be a 100-mile winter race or a 200-mile summer race, and you've got to basically make a pitch and put in like a racer resume as to why you deserve it, but also like have the knowledge and skills to survive in those conditions, because some years it is negative 40 degrees
like last year,
and you need to know how to take care of yourself out there, not
right.
just eating food and drinking water, but managing your layers, preventing frostbite, dealing with dead batteries, not having a light. You've got to be able to remedy all these situations and not know what's going to come up. Mm-hmm. And so we could talk about that later too. There was one guy that had a mechanical out there that was interesting to experience. But so just getting into this is kind of a prestigious thing. So even participating is a really big deal. And luckily we were able to get into it this year. And that's kind of what stemmed this whole thing.
But we've been talking about it and kind of, I don't know if anyone listening knows what vision boards are, but it's basically a board that has a bunch of pictures of some stuff that you want to do in your life. And we had some photos of us, or like some random person from the internet with us standing at the finish line with the Arrowhead 135, banner on top. And we've been looking at that photo for like 2 years, just talking about, we should do this at some point in our life, but we had no idea it was going to be this soon.
Yeah, it was always kind of one of those bucket list items. Like, yeah, in the next, 5 or 10 years when it happens, it happens. But, it's not something that's going to happen this winter. Like, but sometime when the time is right, this is something I want to check off the list. And so we just kind of kept manifesting that in the back of our minds. And what was it, 2018? We kind of just set a goal for ourselves, January 2020.
Yeah.
It was the timeline we were shooting for. So that was like 2 years ago.
Right.
We started planning things out for this.
And that's why last summer we kind of got into the ultra endurance gravel racing, was so that we could get into the Arrowhead.
Yeah, actually, if you listen to the endurance podcast we did, I think we talk about that was the reason we did that first 380-mile gravel race, was for Arrowhead.
Yeah.
So this whole thing has just been a premonition trying to get to this race.
This race means a lot to us, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's like you got to pay $250 just to do the thing, and
just
then
to suffer.
And then you're taking time off work and paying for hotels and everything else, and then it's like, you go into some weird mental states out there. But so we did all the stuff we needed to for qualifying races. We made a good pitch about the winter camping we've done and survival kind of stuff, and we were able to get our entries passed, and so we were able to go up there.
Let's talk about the training that we did, in the winter, like the stuff that we went camping, kind of getting our gear figured out, and like
Right.
so we went camping a couple times down to some river bottoms and just like slept in the middle of the woods and like 0 degrees, and even I think we woke up and it was like even -7 or something.
Well,
It was,
and not just slept, so we weren't in like a nice, comfortable, 3-person tent. We were using the required gear for the race, so that way we were familiar with it. So you're using a bivy sack, which is basically the size of your sleeping bag, a little bit bigger, and like a 1-person tent that's minimalist and very claustrophobic. And for a person like me, I absolutely hate it. But that's what, when Ian says camping, that's what it was.
yeah, it's just a sleeping bag with a little foam or air pad underneath you to have a little bit of insulation, which is another piece of required gear you have to have. So you have to have a -20 sleeping bag, a bivy sack, and an insulated sleeping pad. And so we went on we did one of those, and it was, like 0 degrees or -7 or something. We had our stove, and like we didn't have the 3,000 calories that you had to have with you on our bikes, but we were just trying to get familiar with like packing all of our stuff up, taking it all out, and kind of figuring out, what works, what doesn't, and how to set up the bikes.
Right, and just familiarity with gear, because you want to know how to use it before you get into it, because we weren't anticipating sleeping in the race. We weren't expecting to need to use it, but we still didn't want to get to an oh shit moment where you've got to get in your bivy now, or like I'm falling asleep, I need to get some 2 hours of sleep, and not be familiar with our gear. So that was the reason for doing that, just so that way it gives you a level of confidence going into it. But then also, if there's some weird thing, like I found out the zipper on my sleeping bag tends to get stuck in the fabric, and so I need to be really diligent about zipping it up and down so I don't rip the down on that super expensive -20 bag. And so some of that kind of stuff is nice to know beforehand, because when you're out in the dark and tired and fatigued, that's not when you want to be finding those things out.
Also, you brought like 4 different types of fire starters, and you're trying to use them all differently to see like what works the best.
That was just kind of playing around with different things, and I came to the conclusion that just use a Zippo. It seems to be the easiest.
So is there anything else you want to talk about with like training going up to it?
That's as far as training, but then one other thing I wanted to talk about was before the race, 2 weeks prior, I ended up getting a concussion, which was really poor timing on my part. I was on a group ride, and my helmet has a visor on it, and I was looking down at the trail trying to pick my line through the snow, and the visor completely cut out of my field of view a down tree that was going across the log. Or across the log, a down log going across the trail. Yeah, probably. And I went straight into that thing at like 10 or 12 miles an hour, and like my neck got cranked all the way back. Like I swear, my bike and my shoulders, like I was hanging on going straight forward, but I was looking directly at the guy behind me. Like I felt like an owl just with my head swiveled around. And I remember the first thought going through my head was like, you just snapped your neck. Because I heard a crack, and I was just like, you're done. And stopped, kind of fell over on the trail a little bit, and I was just like really hurting, but I didn't think anything about a concussion at the time. And then a day goes by, and 2 days go by, and I still have a headache, and I work in front of a computer all day, and looking at screens just made me really, you just feel terrible. And if you've never had a concussion, the best way to describe it is like, if you're car sick trying to read or something like that, or you have like a really bad hangover, it's like that, but every minute of every day for up to like a week straight. Any bright lights, you can't read text, you can't look at a screen to watch a movie, you can't listen to music or podcast, because just taking in all of those different sensory things and having your brain try to analyze it just messes with you so hard. And so I was just kind of laying in like a dark room, like trying to
Well, it was a big concern too, like, doing this race, because you're out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and then if you had started getting one of these like headaches, or your brain started to hurt, like there's nothing you can do. Like we're out in the middle of nowhere, there's no help.
And that was my biggest worry, because it was 2 weeks before the race day. And 5 days go by, and I'm still having symptoms and headache. And then all of a sudden it kind of went away. And then after that weekend, Monday comes around, and I was fine all day at work, came home, and then all of a sudden it hit me again, like nausea, headache, like really bad. And then after that, it was just kind of tapered off and was good. But it was kind of a scare for me because I didn't, every concussion's different. That's the thing. It's not like a broken bone where it breaks and you've got 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's going to be healed, or you can't put a set time on it because every body is different, every impact is different, every recovery is different, and so trying to make those calls is a difficult thing to do. And so I just kind of was rolling with it and hoping for the best.
Right. And now, so leading up to the week of the race, our dad was supposed to be our taxi driver. This is kind of changing on subjects, but he ended up getting some food poisoning or some stomach flu or something, and he didn't know if he was going to be able to drive us. And he was the one who was going to kind of take us and taxi us up to the start and the finish. And then he didn't know if he was going to be able to because he didn't want to get us sick, and he didn't know if he was going to be, hurting the whole time and didn't want to whatever. So
2 days before we were supposed to drive up there.
Yeah. So our emotions are just well, how are we supposed to get up there? Or because it's a point-to-point race, so the finish is an hour and a half away from where the start is.
More than that, yeah.
Where our car would be. And we were trying to figure out how we could get our car back, and we're just
trying to figure out the logistics of it.
Yeah, that was kind of a headache, but
yeah, headache. I had a headache.
It ended up working out. Our dad, I think he was just some food poisoning or something, because he felt fine on Saturday when we were going to leave. So he ended up driving us up there, which was super awesome. And because Alex has a cargo bike, we have to take a trailer. So we kind of just shove our bikes in a trailer and strap them down with a tarp and, take it up, made the way up and checked into our hotel. That was Saturday, and the race started on Monday morning at 7 a.m. And so we got to the hotel and maybe early afternoon, late afternoon, started putting all of our stuff, brought everything into the room and gearing up our bikes. And we noticed that there was a mandatory gear check on Saturday as well as Sunday. So we ended up going to the gear check on Saturday just to get it over with and get everything checked off. Because there's a mandatory check that you have to do, just like Tuscobia, where you have to have, 3,000 calories and a stove and all that other stuff we mentioned. So we did that. What else did we do? I slept.
It was kind of nice getting up there 2 days beforehand too. We planned that because we didn't know what weather was going to be.
Yeah.
And that way we could get familiar with it, because I've never been that far north, and we hear from everybody that's done this, typically the weather forecast isn't always accurate. It might be 10 degrees colder in that city once you get up there. And so that was the idea for getting up a few days ahead of time, which I think was really nice. But then the anticipation of doing the race kind of gets to you, and you just want to get going.
Yeah, definitely.
So the waiting was hard. The other nice thing was Sunday, we got to go pre-ride the course and just see how the snow conditions were. I think we rode out 5 miles and then came back. And it was really funny too, because we had all our stuff strapped to our bikes, and just so it was ready to go, and that way we were familiar with the weight and the handling and stuff. And we're going through town. It's this tiny little town on the border of Canada, and the snow, they had so much more snow there. Every street and driveway and parking lot had 4 or 5 feet of snow. Yeah, it was amazing. It was like a winter wonderland. And we're going through town to get to the start of the trail for this little pre-ride, and there's some guy out shoveling, just doing his thing, and he looks up and sees us biking by and just goes, "Hey, good luck tomorrow." It's like everybody in the town knows about this thing. It was just absolutely wild. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. He's just, well, I'm sure. I mean, in these kind of small towns, it's this is the big event for the year, helps a lot of revenue, and all these people come in and,
well, they get a ton of publicity too, because this is some of those years when the conditions are terrible, it's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday we had the mandatory race meeting where they just go over the rules and the course and stuff to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, the guy last year, someone had a case of frostbite on his eye. So
yeah.
We didn't even know that you could get frostbite on your eye. But apparently that's a thing. And
his eyeball was frosted over with ice crystals on it, on the surface of his eye, and he couldn't see out of it.
He was blind out of one eye.
That's insanity.
Yeah, I'm glad it was warm this year.
That's what I'm saying. That course was really rough, but I'm okay with how the weather was.
So yeah, the racer meeting was kind of, it was fun seeing everyone because there's a lot of people too that we know just from doing these kind of races. It's the same group of people who go from race to race.
All these events, yeah.
But
A special group of people. Well, and that was one racer. This woman that was running it. We were talking to her at breakfast at the hotel one morning, and the Arrowhead kind of slogan or whatever, their motto is "Cowards won't show." And she was kind of poking fun at it, like, "Yeah, but smart, intelligent people don't show up either. Like, why are we doing this?" It's like, yeah, you make some sense.
so yeah, that was cool. And that was Sunday, and then got up maybe, I don't know, like 6 o'clock on Monday. The race was at 7, and our hotel was maybe a mile or 2 miles away from the race start.
Yeah, super. Well, the town's so small. I mean, everything is right there.
Yeah. But we had breakfast at the hotel and then loaded up and biked over to the start. You had to check in before the start at this like little hockey arena community center thing. And then, so the race started on the snowmobile trail, and it's just 135 miles of this gorgeous snowmobile trail up in northern Minnesota.
And at the start, I think it was like a little over 10 degrees, somewhere around like really low teens, which is pretty optimal for, in my opinion, for this stuff. A lot of people will say closer to 0 is good, but I think teens are like a nice temperature for layering and keep the snow hard pack. But the snow was phenomenal. Like for that first bit, everything was pristine.
Well, we kept joking about like it's 100 times better than Tuscobia.
Yeah.
Like this is a dream.
That was our introduction to winter ultras. So then racing this, it's our second ever winter ultra. We're like, this is amazing. Like the snow is wonderful. But yeah, the course was gorgeous. It had snowed the week before, and every single tree, every single bush, and like there's just pine trees everywhere. It was beautiful, but they're all just dusted in this like soft snow that kept falling, and it looked absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the trail, we kept, like, race started at 7, and so the bikes start first, and then the skiers are 2 minutes after, and then the runners are 2 minutes after that. So we're kind of like, everyone starts at the same time, but, it's like a 2-minute break. Yeah, there was maybe 70, 80 bikers.
I think it was like, 78, 76, somewhere around there.
Yeah. And so we were going pretty fast out of the gate. We were holding up with that first group of people. Well, the leaders, they broke off right away. They were gone.
Oh, yeah.
And then we were kind of with the first main pack of like maybe 8 people or something.
Yeah.
We were riding with them for like 20 miles or so.
Yeah, we were going like a solid 12.
13.
Yeah. And then like the pace line we were in with 8 guys, like we'd just be cruising along, and then like you'd look back and there'd be 7, and then like cruising along, and like somebody peels off in that's pulling the pace line, and then the next guy pulls up, and then like you look back and you're like, oh, now there's 6, and then like it just
everyone kept dropping,
and then eventually Ian and I dropped, and then they kept going.
Yeah, at that point there was maybe like 3 of them who kept going, and then we just were like, yeah, let's slow it down a little bit. This is a marathon, not a sprint kind of thing, and
yep,
we understand a little bit more now. We're getting more experience of like, let's save our energy for...
I know. I still need to figure out my layers. That's one thing I'm lacking on.
Yeah.
I need to get more familiar with that stuff.
I did pretty good, I think, for the first half. I had the 45 North Torvald jacket that was just a super thin... It's basically like a windbreaker.
But it's vented, right?
Yeah, so it's super breathable, and it was like, it worked really well. So that was awesome. I probably honestly could have left that on for the whole race, but I ended up putting on my Torvald jacket, which is the 45 North's like heavier version, or it's like a, like
right.
They're full-fledged.
It's actually insulated.
Yeah. And because when we stopped at mile 35 is the first checkpoint at Gateway, which is a convenience store / gas station that they kind of like, make as like an outpost.
Well, it's also the only thing out there. Like there is nothing there.
So we get to there, we get to that checkpoint, we sign in, you have to say your number, and then they check you in, and then you also have to say your number when you leave so they know how long you were at the checkpoint. But we got there, and Alex was kind of shivering and very cold.
I was wet, and I got really cold when we got, like, I was shivering, and I was kind of worrying me because it was so early on in the race, and I didn't want to have to deal with layers, and there's nowhere in there to... And it's the first checkpoint. Like, the goal, you never want to spend a ton of time at the first checkpoint.
No, and that's the hardest part, is to be in and out.
Yeah, and so, like, swapped out my toe warmers. I bought a Gatorade there and downed a sandwich that I had brought with me. Took a serving of Spiz, which we had planned before to just take one serving basically at every rest stop. Mm-hmm. We had them portioned out. But we ended up spending 30-ish minutes at that first checkpoint before we left, which is a pretty long time. I think a lot of people were like, closer to 15 or less, if that.
Yeah, there was a couple, because we were the top 15 people. So all those people that come in when we were hanging out, they are just in and out. They know what they're doing. They know, they know exactly, like,
they filled their water and left kind of thing.
They were on a mission where we're just like, we have no idea.
Right. Well, and then we're getting ready to go, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom quick before we leave. And there's a line of like 4 people waiting to go to the bathroom, and I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to go on the trail. Like, let's just get back out there and get 5 miles down, and we'll stop somewhere. And we left and got going, and like I could not warm up my hands for whatever reason. I think it was because that's one thing I learned there. I left my gloves in my pogies, I think.
Yeah,
because
outside.
I had liners on, and we got back outside. I went to put my insulated gloves on, but they were all wet and cold from sitting in my pogies. So when you get to the checkpoint, bring your gloves inside with you.
Lesson 1.
Yeah. So
I gotta ask, did the temperature difference from last year to this year sort of affect your setup or what you assumed it was going to be versus what it was? Or I noticed someone posting, I can't remember who it was, but I think you commented on it. It's like someone saying they had to deal with sweat this year.
Yeah.
Because it was warm.
Yeah. So we signed up for this, 4 months in advance, so you don't know what the weather's going to be. Mm-hmm. And last year it was -40 for a majority of the race, which was great snow conditions. It's like riding on asphalt, but you've got to deal with being out there in the cold. And as long as you're moving, your body's generating heat, but when you stop, it really sucks. And that was the one thing this year, as it got closer and closer to the race, we could see that it was going to be, low to high 20s, kind of like in that range throughout the day, which kind of sucks for trail conditions. And a lot of people were worried about sweat management and layers, but that's what we typically ride in. So I think it kind of served us well because it's a familiar place for us.
Right. We had that comforting confidence of like, we know this temperature, we know kind of what it feels like.
It's not like we're diving into a new environment at -40, as well as a new race course that we're not familiar with. So like Ian was saying, it just gave us a little more confidence, I think, being so familiar with those temperatures.
We still brought like our down jacket, our mittens, or some outdoor research.
We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna be out there for a day or 3 days. Like.
Yeah, you bring everything you can. That was one thing too. We probably had the heaviest, bikes of gear on. Like we had
We were definitely up there. I saw a few pretty heavily loaded bikes, but we were definitely up there.
We always carry way too much shit.
And more food than we need. I brought so much food, but I'd rather have it because, like I said, I don't know how long we're going to be out there, how long we're going to be walking.
Right.
I want to stay fueled up. The last thing I want to do is get somewhere and not have food or water left.
Yeah, I want to talk about nutrition later on. Let's get back to where we are in the race. So we're leaving Gateway. We're, feeling all right, but we're cold and we're trying to warm up. I was another thing, too, I want to mention is your stomach fat, like right on your belly. For whatever reason, that got really cold because it's not, your fat doesn't insulate you. So that was super, would not warm up for me. And I don't know why, but that was kind of struggle. You had your hands, and for me, it was like my belly fat was just super cold.
Yeah, my fingers were particularly my middle finger on both hands was just white. And I had hand warmers in. I was fisting my hands inside of my gloves. I was doing the windmill thing, trying to get blood flow going. And I was just like, it's going to warm up in 10 or 15 minutes. I think. But you don't know. I'm just I really hope it warms back up.
It was probably a solid, half hour before you were starting to feel good again. And
yeah, that's the thing. You just need to be moving and keep your blood flowing in your body.
That's probably why a lot of those people are just in and out. It's easier to just keep going versus stop for a while.
Absolutely. And the more we see that, the more it kind of sets in okay, there's a reason they're doing that. It's not just to be fast. It's because it keeps your body regulated the same.
After we leave Gateway, that's kind of when the hills start. So there was quite a bit of climbing from Gateway to Mel George.
Yeah, so Gateway was mile 35-ish, and then Mel George is just after mile 70. So we had another 35 to go.
And Mel George is the second checkpoint at this lodge, cabin, resort.
Resort thing. They've got different cabins, and it's right on a big lake.
Yeah, and That was the best checkpoint ever. But before we get into that, we started seeing some of the hills, and there was this one first punchy uphill that was pretty straight up, and it was kind of small compared to like the whole course itself. Now looking back, but it was like the first steep hill, and we're just walking up it, and then there's this guy up at the top with his phone, and he's taking a photo of us walking up the hill, and just like, well,
struggling to walk up the hill too, not like.
Yeah, that was funny. Weird.
Near vertical, and you're trying to push a 70-pound bike.
Yeah,
it's tough.
When we got up to the top, I was like, well, so are the hills starting now? He goes, no, the hills haven't even, like, this is just the beginning. You have a lot in store for later on.
Yeah, God, it's something. It's crazy. It's absolutely wild.
But so that section, we were kind of going, we were like playing, like, what are some game of like, leapfrog? Yeah.
That one?
Yeah, that game. With maybe 3 or 4 other racers, because we just like someone would stop, they're doing food or they're drinking water or doing some layers. We'd pass them, and then they'd catch us the next time we were stopped, and we just this back and forth constantly.
And every time it's like, y'all good? Yep. Everybody's always checking in, like, are you okay?
Are you alive?
Which this just kept going through in my mind. There's a meme from The Simpsons with Ralph Wiggum where he's just like, I'm in danger. It's like you just keep thinking about that like while you're out there in the cold. Like, oh, just this happy little voice in your head like, I'm fucked. But yeah, we were at like mile 50, like 20 miles from Gateway, and that was the first time I bonked where I was just totally gassed and feeling like wiped, and I'm just like, this is a long way to go. We're like barely a third of the way there.
And that was kind of when the hills were just long. They weren't really that steep either. There's just like constant, like you're either going up a really long hill and then you get a nice little downhill for a while and then you go back up a giant.
Yeah. Like, at the bottom of that downhill starts another uphill. It's just up, down, up, down.
Yeah. And on one of those hills, we actually saw another racer, Steve Cannon. He's a pretty, we're not, I don't know how
he's well known.
Yeah, but he rode his bike from Anchorage? Anchorage to Nome in the Iditarod Trail Invitational.
1,000 miles across Alaska.
Yeah.
By yourself, like in the middle of nowhere. That's survival, is what that is.
But so he was on the side of the trail and he was messing around with his bike. He had his bike flipped upside down and, of course, hey, how's it going? Like, what do you need? Are you doing good? And then he was talking about how his sidewall on his tire wasn't sealing or there was a hole in it or something. So
he said his sidewall was starting to go, so it was leaking air.
Yeah.
And so he was pumping it up every 2 miles and like he'd try to go and see if it would seal again and then it would, go flat and he'd have to stop and pump it up. And
we asked him if he needed a tire or a tube or anything because we had a bunch and he was just like, no, I got one. I'm just being stubborn. Just like, well, yeah, I mean, they're supposed to seal. Like, I don't want to change out a flat or put a tube in the middle of the trail.
Yeah.
Like, that would suck.
At least it was, 20 degrees. Imagine trying to do that when it's negative 40.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing where my head's at. I'm just like, that's insane. But yeah, that was the only real mechanical we experienced out there. I guess you had some issues with your shifting. You think your derailleur hanger got bent or something?
Yeah, I don't know. There was one gear that just would skip constantly. So as long as I was out of that gear, I was fine.
Yeah.
But it was kind of annoying because that gear was the optimal gear that you want to be in when you're pedaling. So it's just like,
of course, that's the one.
Yeah. Do I want to be pedaling, putting out a little more power in the higher gear, or do I want to be spinning my legs in a little bit easier gear?
So maybe that gear is why your knees were hurting.
Maybe.
But yeah, Ian was having some knee pain a little bit out there.
Yeah.
One other guy that we were kind of playing leapfrog with out there, we had talked to at the hotel beforehand. His name was Ryan. But so he was opting to do this unsupported, which some of the racers, whether you're biking, skiing, or running, you can do it supported or unsupported. And if you opt to do it unsupported, you're not allowed inside any of the checkpoints. You're not allowed food or water from any of the checkpoints. Whatever you leave the start with is what you have until you get to the finish. So they're bringing all their own food. If you run out of water, you've got to stop and melt snow. You are entirely on your own. And so this guy we were riding with, Ryan, was doing it unsupported, and he's never done it unsupported, but he's like, if there's a year to do it, I think this is the one to go for it. And we were talking on the trail for a while, and it turns out he forgot his beef sticks in the refrigerator at the hotel, so he was a little bit short on the food that he was expecting to have with him. But it was fun just getting to chat with him. He's done this a handful of times and knows what he's doing. And he was at Tuscobia this year too, which was kind of cool. But just being able to share conversation with all these people out there and pick their brains about what they know.
It was super fun, just like talking with strangers out in the the middle of the trail, and just like joking with each other and just bullshitting. Like it helped a lot.
Well, it makes the time go by, and that's one thing. This course, like it was beautiful out there, but there's so many hills up and down and turns left and right. You're constantly engaged with the trail and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Versus some races that are like Tuscobia, where it's like a rail trail. It's just flat and straight the whole way. This, there's a lot of variety out there.
That's what we were kind of messing around at the first 5 miles. We're like, wow, this trail has turns. This is amazing.
I know. Yeah, that's great.
So we get to the second checkpoint at Mount George, and the trail kind of dumps you out on the opposite side of the lake, and then you bike across the lake to the checkpoint, to the lodge. And so we're riding across the lake, and the wind is pretty nuts and pretty intense because of how, open everything is.
Right.
So we're just sitting in here, and you can see like the wind blow the snow across a lake, and we're in this pace line of like, it was me and you, and then I think Ryan or one other person behind us. There's like three of us. We're all just going along, and then someone behind us just starts booking it, and he goes flying past us, and he gets up into the head of the pace line, and then goes for maybe 5-10 minutes in the front.
It wasn't even that long. Yeah.
But then he backs off, and he just goes, "Yeah, sorry guys, I had to be in front for the photos. My kids and my wife were taking photos." And he points over, and sure enough, his like support crew is sitting there with cameras.
Right, and then he backs off and starts going slow again.
Yeah, that was funny.
Right. Yeah, and then we got across the lake and rolled into Mel George checkpoint at like 4:30ish or a little before that. So it was before sundown, which that was our goal, was hit Mel George before sundown.
Yeah.
So we were kind of right on track with that, and our whole goal going into this race, obviously just to get to the finish line, but our goal was to do it without sleeping and just bike straight through and finish in under 24 hours if we could. And so that's why we had kind of set if we get to halfway before sundown, we should be kind of on track with where we want to be. So that was reassuring to see. And then we get inside there, and it was just a beautiful oasis.
Yeah, it was.
It sucked because we were riding with Ryan, who's doing it unsupported, and I was like, we were 5-10 miles out, and I'm trying to give myself encouragement because I was done. And I was just like, all right, only like 10 more miles, and then we got grilled cheese waiting for us. And I look over, I'm just like, I've got grilled cheese waiting for me. Like, I'm sorry, Ryan. But so we roll up there, and then he gets out his stove and starts making oatmeal and melting water. And we go inside, we get grilled cheese. They've got soup waiting for us. There's a dry rack next to a fireplace. It was amazing.
And the volunteers there were so nice. They were so helpful. They're just like, what do you need? Like, do you want a second one, or like, do you want some pop?
And grabbing your water bottle to fill it and doing this. It's like, I can fill it. Like, thank you though. But yeah, they're so helpful. And a lot of people at that halfway point will sleep there because it's a lot easier to sleep at a checkpoint than it is out on the trail in your bivvy. And at Mel George, you can actually rent rooms there and have a nice indoor place to sleep.
Well, they only have like maybe 10 cabins or something, so they fill up super quick.
But some people will share them. They might sleep 4 people to a room or something. But that's a lot of people's strategy going into this, is sleep halfway and then finish the rest of it the next morning or in the middle of the night. I saw some people left Mel George at like 3 a.m, after a couple hours of sleep and kept going.
So yeah, that checkpoint was awesome. We spent maybe, was that half hour, 45 minutes?
I got it. 38 minutes.
Yeah, so that was a little bit longer than we expected to. I wanted like to keep the checkpoints 20 minutes or so, but they always go longer.
Yeah. We did a good job keeping them as short as we could, but yeah, we were hoping for like 20, 30 at all of them, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, it was probably 40 minutes at the last one, but so we started packing everything back up. We're a little bit, I swapped out all my layers for my spare stuff in my handlebar bag, so I brought some spare layers. So I put all my dry stuff on because we were going to be biking into the dark overnight, and I didn't know how cold it was going to get.
Yeah.
Because it's usually a lot colder at night, so I didn't know if it was going to get down to like -10 or 0 or, what the temperature was going to do. So I put all my dry layers on, put all my wet stuff into my bag, and then we kind of, slowly get onto our bikes and accept the fact that we're going out.
Yeah, we know that this next part's going to be hilly. That's what everybody talks about, is the sections between checkpoint 2 and 3. it's where you have all of the hills, and it's just the worst part of the course.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got outside of the cabin at Mel George, and Ryan's just putting away his stove and stuff, and he's like, yeah, I had, a bowl of warm oatmeal that was really good, but right now I'm shivering and I'm really cold, so I'm gonna get going. See you guys later. He just starts biking away. It's like, dude, hardcore.
Yeah.
But it was nice biking with him and like seeing how that operates for unsupported and like what the best approach is and what kind of tactics they use and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just mind-blowing to watch it, and like, holy shit, dude. Like, even coming inside of the warm place like this is tough. But
when you're coming out of the second checkpoint at Mount George, there's this extra 10-mile loop people talk about that we didn't know about. We thankfully they talked about a little bit at the racer meeting, and previous, like, we ran into him somewhere, but he was talking about how there's a hard right turn, and it's like, a 120-degree turn, and you want to go right instead of left because the trail just kind of gradually turns left, but you want to turn hard right, and a lot of people just follow the trail.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of a hill. You're kind of coming down. It's really easy to miss.
Yeah.
But if you just miss that turn and follow the trail, it brings you all the way back out to the T intersection before the lake, and then you end up crossing the lake again and coming back into the lodge. And so it's just an additional 10-mile loop that just brings you right back to where you were. And one guy did it this year. Every year there's somebody. But when we made that right turn, because we knew about it, and we got a mile out, and I was like, okay, look for that turn. Like, we can't miss it. And we turned right. There's a bunch of tire tracks turning right, and I see one set of tire tracks that went left. I'm like, oh, that's the guy.
But that after that hard turn, there was that one massive hill that we were climbing, that we were walking up. Do you remember that?
Yeah, where it kind of like hooked left at the top.
Yeah, that was huge.
Going. You come around some of these corners and it's it's dark out at this point.
Yeah.
You like come around a sweeping turn in the middle of the snow-covered pine trees, and then you just see a wall of white in front of you, and you're like looking up it with your headlamp. And like the headlamp quits going before you can see the top. You're like, I think that's it, but I'm not sure where the end of this is. And you just start walking.
We just pedal down, and like the downhills were awesome too. They were so rewarding. Like, we were flying on those hills.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because you bomb the downhill and then you coast up the next hill as much as you can, and then just jump off your bike and start walking.
Yeah, you don't
again.
even try to pedal these. There's no way you can pedal up these.
Yeah. So we were doing that we got into like a little bit of a rhythm, and we got maybe 15 miles.
And we weren't riding with anybody either.
No,
we were just by ourselves, and we weren't even really saying a word to each other. We were both just in this like exhausted state, just kind of like head down, keep going, and then it's like, hey, I need to stop for some food, or like, hey, I'm gonna get some water, and then like we'd stop and drink water, and then like that was the extent of the conversations.
Yeah, for maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours. We didn't say a word other than that.
No.
But we ended up getting to, I don't know, it was some hill.
It was like right around mile 90, I think. That's when I remember looking down, like when I was just feeling super tanked, and it was like right around 90.
We were just both beat and dead and, done. We always just, I want to be done.
Yeah.
But some headlights were coming up behind us, and it's Trenton. He's he hosts Filthy 50 and The Dam, the Day Across Minnesota. But he came up behind us and was like, hey, do you guys care if I ride with you for a little bit? And we're both just like, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything to make the time go by quicker.
Yeah. So that was really cool. We, he's like, how are you doing? And we're just like, well, I'm hitting the wall. And he was, I think, in the same boat. Because he was just like, oh, I've been better. I'm doing okay. He's just...
That's the thing. Nobody leads on to how they're really doing. They're just like, maybe if I tell myself I'm okay, I'll be okay. But we ended up riding with him the rest of the way to the Surly TP at Checkpoint 3, and the time out there was really great. And just the conversation makes the time go by so much quicker.
Yeah.
And we're just going and going, and I think he was out of water, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He didn't say anything about it, but...
No, his Camelback was leaking or something.
Or did it freeze, maybe?
No, it was leaking at the mouthpiece. Like, the hose was, cracked or something. Yeah. So he had to, like, stick his mouth over the entire mouthpiece so he could drink out of it. One
more story about Camelbacks malfunctioning. It's like, everybody tells me to run one, and they seem fast, but when they malfunction, you get wet, and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
But... we're just, slowly making our way, walking up hills through the woods, coasting down, and then walking up the next one. And, like, there'd be some that are really shallow, like, really low grade hills that are just kind of gentle climbs, and we're just kind of like, yeah, this looks like a walker. Just like dismount and start walking. It's like we probably could have pedaled it, but I don't wanna.
Yeah, we all just look at each other, just like, yeah, let's walk. Just everyone agrees.
And we're just waiting for the Surly teepee. We're not really sure where it is. Like, we think it's mile 110. That's what they said, but it's in the middle of the woods. It could be anywhere. And so we're just kind of like, every corner we're like, can we see the fire? Like, is that the teepee? Can we see it yet? And then there's like this orange flickering light that you can see through the trees around this tight right corner. And we're just like, that's got to be it. Like, are we here? But looking at the mileage, we were like 6 miles early. And then all of a sudden this orange light starts moving, and it's just like floating through the woods. And then a snow groomer comes flying around the corner, and it's like a big snow machine towing a 25-foot long sled that's grooming and grading the trail. And so we're all just like, oh, shit, like, quick, get off the snow, get off the trail into the waist-deep powder that's next to you. Because nobody wanted to get run over, but none of us knew what to do. Like, you don't see these things while you're out there. I don't know why they were grooming it in the middle of a race. The snow was fine to begin with, but that was a whole new thing that none of us knew what to do with.
It just looks like a steamroller coming at you. It's not going fast, but it's going like 4 miles an hour. And it's
like midnight. Is that guy driving it awake? Like,
yeah. So we're just going, shit, get off the trail. And yeah, it's waist deep. Like when I went to go get off, I forgot that it was waist deep. So I just sink in like 4 feet.
He just sees like 3 headlamps looking at him from the snow. But yeah, he like slowly goes by, and then I'm just looking at the trail, and I'm just like, well, this is either going to be a super awesome highway or it's going to be super shitty. And
Trent started, he's a guinea pig, and tried riding it for a little bit, and got up, like, it was a small hill, so he's like riding up the hill, gets up to the top, and he was just like, yep, it sucks.
Yeah, that snow is super soft. I think after a few hours in the cold, it kind of sets up and gets firmer, but right after they groom it, it's too soft.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, the groomer doesn't take up the whole trail at that point. The trail throughout the whole race, it was like, I think at the narrowest, maybe like 6 or 7 feet wide. Mm-hmm. And there's some sections where it would open up to like 30 feet wide, where there's just like big open prairies. But the section we were at, it didn't take up the whole trail. And so there was like a 2-foot wide shelf on the right side that we were able to ride. That was the old trail. That was really nice. And some sections it would get narrow and we'd lose that, and then it would widen up again and we'd get back on it. But we're just riding single file trying to find the best line through this thing.
Yeah.
Still 5 miles out, which is like 45 minutes away because we're going 6 miles an hour, 7 miles an hour.
And that, it was a very false, excitement because...
Oh yeah, I think all of us were just like, oh, thank God, the fire, we're here. And then no.
Yeah, we're just ticking away. We're just, riding along single file. And finally we turn, or like we get to, I don't know, we like turn around, or we saw those 2 skiers.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Not racers, just people skiing on the trail.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe spectators or something.
I think, they were waiting for a racer to come in.
But we asked them, is there a teepee up there? Just like, yeah, that's where we started. You're really, really close. We didn't make it very far. And then you found her glove that was on the floor? Or
yeah, there was a glove sitting on the trail. And I was like, it's either somebody that's going to be sitting at the checkpoint or whatever. And then we saw those 2 people skiing. And I was like, hey, is this yours? And turns out it was. But that was really nice just seeing them. And then we're like, okay, like just hammer down like it's around one of these corners.
Yeah.
And then, roll in and they're just...
blasting fireworks.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got these Vikings horns. They're like, belting through and just welcoming everybody that comes in, and they've got music blaring through the speakers.
They got a big fire really outside.
Yeah, there's like
and
weird dolls and like corpses strapped to the trees, just really surly stuff.
Yeah, seriously.
Like I rolled in, I'm like, what is this? It's just tiki torches. I was like waiting for drums and like,
some
a sacrifice.
Yeah, we finally get there, and we're just like dismount, and my body's so stiff trying to get off the bike. I almost fell over trying to like get off and like hold myself upright. And you're taking all your water out to go refill inside of the teepee, and like I'm trying to get my food in my bag of Spiz so I can do a bottle of Spiz, the meal replacement mix stuff. And I set both of my water bottles on the floor, and then I like walk over to the teepee, and one of the surly crew, they Jeff, he's just looks over and he's like, Ian, don't you want those? Just like, oh shit. Just I completely forgot. I left everything out on my bike that I was supposed to bring in to refuel. I was just so sleep deprived and, exhausted. And then we get into the teepee and it's actually pretty big. They have like a full-fledged like heater or like a stove in there. And
yeah, there's a wood stove that gets piped up through the top.
Yeah.
So it's like, 50 degrees in there or something.
We're drying off our
really
clothes. Nice. There's like a little dry rack, took off our socks and
all the sandwiches, because we brought snacks with, like Fritos and like a and granola or nuts or whatever, but then we also had like some actual sandwiches that was like a meat and cheese and bread sandwich. Those had frozen, and so it was like setting those on the stove to kind of like warm them up like a little panini. So then the bread got toasted and warm, but then the meat and cheese was still frozen. So you're biting into this like half frozen sandwich that's like hot and cold, and you're just like I didn't care at all. Obviously, at these points it's just like food, but it was just like,
what are you doing? Why are we here?
Yeah.
And Trent, before we got to the checkpoint, he's like, I think I'm gonna just be like 5-10 minutes, get in and out, and just keep going. He ended up staying there for like half hour.
As long as we did, almost. We were at Surly for an hour. That was our longest checkpoint.
Damn.
But while we were there too, a skier rolled in, the first place skier, and he caught us at Mount George too. So there was a skier holding pace with us biking, which was mind blowing to me because we were not going fast, but we weren't going slow. Mm-hmm. And this guy is just killing it. But 135 miles on skis, I don't know. To me, that's crazy. But the Surly was a really nice oasis. It sucks because all they have for you is water. They don't have any food for you or anything else. All the other checkpoints, Gateway, you can buy food. It's a gas station. At Mel George, they're making soup and sandwiches, and they've got chips out on the table. You can just munch on whatever you want. But at Surly, you get water. And they've got some nice scotch and whiskeys for you. But that's it.
Yeah, I forgot to grab some. I was going to have some, but I was just completely spaced on taking some before we left.
It's probably for the best. I feel like that would have just put me to sleep.
You're a sleeper.
Yep. And then...
so Trent leaves and he's like, we'll meet you. I'll see you up at the next hill.
Yeah.
You'll catch up with us. And he dips out while we're getting our clothes on. And then we kind of slowly take our time because we're not in any rush. We're just like, whatever. Let's race our own race.
We quit caring. Yeah. What was that? You don't race to win, just race your own race.
Yeah. Race your own race is the advice, which is a really good, I think, to keep in mind. I was thinking about that quite a lot. It's like, don't let other people who are passing you or other, mentality, your competitiveness get in your own head because it's your own race, it's your own thing.
Right. Well, and when you start doing that too, then you forget to get a drink of water. You forget to eat some food. And then before you know it, you're in a spot that you can't bounce back from. Mm-hmm. So focusing on yourself just really gets you in tune with what needs to happen for you to get where you want to get to.
Yeah, so we leave Surly. We're feeling a lot better because we got to hang out for a bit, and everyone at Surly is just badasses.
And familiar faces. We knew a fair amount of the people there, so it was nice to just hang out.
Yeah.
Our dad was there. He was at all three checkpoints when we rolled in to, just get some photos and say hi, see how things are going. Mm-hmm. And everybody talks about how beautiful this course is and these rolling hills. Because when you're at the top of some of these hills, you can see for miles. And that was one thing we were bummed about because we knew we were going to hit that section at night. So we kind of missed out on a lot of that. And the other thing I was really hoping to either see some wildlife like a moose or a wolf or something, or see the northern lights because I've never seen those. But it was really cloudy and overcast, which was nice for the middle of the day because it kind of kept the temperature lower, I think. If it was sunny, it would have been hotter, but... didn't get to see any northern lights either.
Yeah, we come down the last big hill called Wake 'em Up Hill, and this is another wall, We've done this before.
But we knew it was the last one.
Yeah.
Because from there's no more hills.
Right. Well, there is. It's just a false hill.
Yeah.
So we come down that one and then turn around and kind of get on this, prairie. It's just an open area we're maybe 15 miles out.
I think, it was the last 15.
And it's just a very, very slow grade uphill.
Yeah, just a big false flat the whole way to the finish.
Yeah, which just wears out. I was, at this point too, I was falling asleep. I was hitting a wall of being sleep deprived, and I was, at the point where you're riding along, I'm just staring at Alex's rear tire, and I'd kind of nod off and look back up and nod off and look back up. And
yeah, and so with the concussion I was getting over, I'm not sure if it was from the concussion or from dehydration, but probably like a little bit of both coming back from that. When I was behind Ian at night, because you have to have your lights on all the time on the trail, and so he's got these red blinkies, and I was just messing with my eyes and my head being behind him. So I was like, I need to lead. Like, I just got to be in the front so that way I don't have that just shining in my face. And so we're on that last 10, 15-mile stretch, and I'm leading, and I can see Ian's headlight behind me shining forward, and then it just kind of waves off to the left and the right, and then comes back into tow. And I'm just, like, looking back at Ian every time, like, did he drop or whatever? And he's like, no, he's still there. I'm just going to keep going. But he kept talking about how tired he was, and I was pretty worried. And I'm like, well, dude, take a 5-hour. Like, we both brought 2 of them with. And then I just hear Ian yell back, it's frozen. And so then I, like, look at my 2 5 hours, and I was just like, holy shit. And so, like, bring caffeine pills. Bring them in pill form. You can always take that.
Yeah, we were trying to. I put mine in my glove too, but mine never thawed. I don't know. Yours thawed quicker than mine.
Well, you were on the verge of falling over, and I didn't want to be on that trail longer than I had to be. So I was trying, I did this for me, not for you. I was trying to warm up the 5-hour, and I kept rotating it in the palm of my hand and, like, moving it around, trying to get all the surface area on it I could, and it melted enough to where there was, like, a cylinder of ice in the middle of the bottle, but there was, like, liquid around the outside of it.
And maybe got, like, a sip or 2 sips
of it.
Yeah,
I was like, here, drink this. Like, it's another hour. We'll be there in 1 hour.
So before that, you stopped to mess with your Garmin because your Garmin died.
Yeah.
And then you turned on some music on your Bluetooth speaker.
Yep.
And I was kind of just sitting with, like, my head on my handlebars, like, falling asleep while you were doing your thing. And
it was probably only 2 minutes, like, that I was messing with stuff.
Yeah, but it was, like, I was, at the point of just, like, passing out on my handlebars. So, I'm just, like, sitting with my arms crossed or whatever. And then I hear the music start going, and then you're just like, all right, time to get up. And I was just like, okay.
Yep. And, yeah, man, I was doing okay at that point, and then, another half hour goes by or whatever, and at this point we are on a flat, straight trail that's just monotonous. You can kind of see lights in the distance, but thankfully Trenton had warned us, when you get closer to Tower and you see Fortune Bay, the casino where the finish is, you see the lights, and then the trail takes a hard hook, and then you start biking away from it, and then you make another left, and then you end up coming back into it. So when you see the lights, don't think you're just going straight to them, because you're going to jog out of the way again.
It's only like an extra 4 miles around, but it's still, like, it's defeating.
Yeah, it was nice to know that ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we're biking along, and then there's just this, like reflective thing way up ahead that I see on the trail, and it kind of looked like somebody's, like, reflective vest or something, and it's just slowly walking towards us. I'm like, that's really weird. Like, there's no walkers out here. They're all way behind us, and why are this person slowly walking towards us? Like, it's kind of creepy. And as we get closer and closer, I see that they're eyes, and it's still just walking towards us. And it's this huge deer. I think it was a doe, but it was pretty massive. And we're still biking because, like, we're not stopping. We're getting to the, like, just trudging along. Like, at this point, we don't care. It's just like whatever's happening. But we just see the eyes, and we didn't know if it was a wolf, a deer, like, what it was. And then we see that it's a deer, and then it just keeps walking towards us. It was probably 15 feet away.
Less than that.
Yeah. And this thing was huge. And then it like...
just slowly walks off to the side and just stares at us.
Yeah.
Like, literally feet away from us.
It was not moving fast. It didn't have a care in the world. It's just like, this is my turf. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And we just, bike on by, and he's just looking at us. And...
yeah. And you could see the trails in the snow. It was walking on that trail for miles. Like,
yeah.
It was just following the snowmobile trail and the bike tires, and... it was crazy, but that was the only wildlife. I'm like, we have deer everywhere. Like, I want to see a wolf or a moose. Give me something exciting.
Yeah, that was maybe 5-10 miles out. There's this last road crossing, and Alex's Garmin's dead, and I'm looking at the map on my Garmin, and just like, well, I can't. Like, I thought, it's like 100. We're at like 133 miles or 132 miles, and we're so close. I'm just like, where's the finish? I don't see the dot or on the map. I don't see the the thing, and finally we turn, like make that left hook, and then you can see the finish. It's like a quarter mile up. I'm just like, thank God. Like,
Yeah.
we're here. So I start picking up the pace a little bit just to get done. And Alex is like, what are you doing? Like,
Well, I didn't know what mile we were at, and I was just like head down in the zone doing my thing. And then I'm like, why are we going faster?
I was just wanted to be done.
Yeah.
Like, let's get it over with. And
Well,
we,
at this point, it was like 3:50 in the morning.
yeah.
We had been up the whole day and night, exerting tons of energy, and yeah.
We come around the corner and there's like the orange tape or the orange fencing.
Yeah,
So you can
the
see,
shoot to the finish.
yeah, and of course there's an uphill to the finish. There's always an uphill to the finish. So, like shift down into the granny gear and slowly crawl up this hill.
Yeah.
And, get past the finish line.
And that banner that we've been visualizing for the last 2 years that says Arrowhead 135 finish that goes across the trail that you ride underneath. They didn't have it this year. It wasn't there. They had just like a post coming up the side that said finish Arrowhead, and just like, dang it. But one thing I heard about afterwards, not the first woman that finished, but the first woman that finished unsupported, she ended up sleeping in her bivvy out on the trail in the middle of the night for like 2 or 3 hours. And she woke up still in the night when it was dark out and heard like some rustling next to her. And so she opened up her bivvy and unzipped it a little bit and looked out and saw a wolf directly across from where her bike was staring at her. And so she just zipped her bivvy back up and waited for it to go away. And then she just packed her shit up real quick and got out of there, I guess. But it's like, a lot of these people have beef sticks in their bags and like, food to munch on or bacon bits, or that's what a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. And I could see an animal like that wanting to come get that. So that was the only thing I heard of someone experiencing a wolf, but I was kind of hoping we would get to, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I don't want to experience like that. I don't want to see a wolf outside of my bivvy when I'm sleeping.
Not outside the bivvy, but if I'm on the bike and moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we got to the finish. They bring you inside and kind of check off some of your gear to make sure you finished with like, your 3,000 calories and all that stuff. And they bring you up to the, what is it, like the racer suite or something?
The hospitality room.
Hospitality room, yeah. You get to pick out your trophy, which is just this like immaculate Arrowhead trophy, and they're all handmade, so you get to pick which one you want because they're all different. And then they've got food and soup and Coca-Cola, and there's probably like 15 people in there, 20 people.
Less than that.
Yeah, 10
maybe
or something.
10.
Other racers, and they're all just sitting there like pretty dead silent.
Yeah.
Like one guy's in the corner with his head on the table sleeping. Their boots are off. The room kind of smells funky. And like, the race official that walks us into the room is like, "Hey, here we go. The brothers finished." And everybody's like, "Hey," and claps, and then just kind of dies back down. And then like, every person that comes in every 20, 30 minutes, like we all clap and cheer them on, and then everybody's just back to like comatose state.
Yeah. There's complete like, autopilot or zombie.
Oh, you're so defeated. Yeah. And then we heard two guys talking about the hot tub and that being open, and we're just like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we ended up going back to our dad is sleeping in the room now because he's going to drive back.
Because he was up that whole time with us. He never slept.
Yeah.
Driving to all the checkpoints and stuff. So he was just as sleep deprived as we were.
So we went back to the room. Our dad's passed out, and we're getting our swimming trunks, and we go back to the hot tub. It's 5 a.m. now, and we're sitting in the hot tub with those two other people, and they're sharing some bottle of liquor at 5 a.m. after this race.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the experiences and going back and forth about stories. And one of the guys that we were chatting with, he's done it 13 times, which is, absolutely madness.
Yeah.
He said when he first started doing it, they didn't have fat bikes. It was like the endomorph Surly tires.
A 3-inch wide tire. That was the fattest tire.
Yeah, that sounds insane.
And it's not knobby at all. It's a pretty
slick tire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of nice sitting in that hot tub though, just like get all the sweat off and like the chlorine and just clean yourself a little bit.
Yeah, just take a bath with your sweaty racer body in the hot tub, Ian.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, sicko. What else are hotel pools for? But yeah, it was fun chatting with them and hearing their stories about stuff. Then after that, we went back to the room, and I took a shower.
Yeah.
Like a civilized human. And I get out expecting Ian to hop in the shower after me, and he's just face down on the bed, passed out on top of all the blankets. Like, well, I guess we'll see you in the morning.
I told you, man, I was tired.
Yeah. I believe it.
But that was a race. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I got a list of Instagram questions that I put up on my story. So I want to go through these and kind of answer them off. There's some pretty good ones in here that would be fun to chat about, but I know the episode's kind of going a little bit long, but that's all right. So the first question is, why don't you guys wear helmets during these long winter races? If you want to go, you can explain it.
Well, so they're not required gear for these. Both Tuscobia and Arrowhead, it's not part of the required stuff. And so not having a helmet on, in my opinion, it's one less thing to... one less layer to try to deal with, and like if you want to switch hats or like you might get more sweaty having a helmet on, it doesn't help you at all trying to
manage layers.
Yeah, to manage your stuff, other than maybe having a light on it. I think I saw a few people with helmets out on the course just because they had their light mounted on their helmet. We just used like a headlamp, like a Black Diamond or a Petzl or the climbing helmet or a light kind of thing. And the other reason, you're going, 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour for the majority of this race. There are some downhills where we hit like 29, 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So that part, I guess, is, pretty dangerous, but the snow is 4 feet deep on either side. As long as you don't hit a tree, which I'm pretty good at, you'll be okay. But the other thing, the only real concern out there, because you're not crossing highways too much, you're not running into other people, you see snowmobiles. And we didn't see that many, honestly, which was kind of nice. The race starts on a Monday, I think, to avoid snowmobile traffic, because most of them are out on the weekends.
Yeah.
But that's the main concern out there, is these snowmobiles flying by you. And some of them might have a few drinks in them. They might be, not paying attention. They're going 60, 70, whatever. They're supposed to slow down when they pass you, but they don't always. Right. And if you get hit by a snowmobile, that helmet's not going to do anything. You're going to get split in half. Like, there's no way to prevent that. And so that's the biggest reason that I don't wear a helmet. It's just easier to regulate your layers, and then it's not going to do me a ton of good.
Right. I mean, yeah, we're avid, helmet wearers. I mean, we wear them all the time, like in the cities and commuting and stuff. But just these long winter ultras, it's not a necessity.
And if you want to change your hat or something, you got to take your helmet off, swap. It's one less thing to deal with.
Right.
And it's
less gear to bring,
less weight to carry. Granted, we weren't trying to be as lightweight as possible, but
I was gonna say our bikes are probably like 70 pounds.
Like you were saying, being that we always wear helmets, I was kind of excited to I don't have to wear one for this race. Like that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But
the next one I got is, what tire pressure were you using, and then what tires were you using? For me, I had the 45 North Dunder Beast in the rear, and then the Wrathlord in the front. I added a studded tire in the front just because it's kind of what I run commuting, and it's just the tire setup, and I don't really care enough to change out my tires constantly. So it's just, I want to pick, a knobby, a really, wide footprint, and a tire that's going to work in every condition, just so I have that bomb-proof setup. The Dunder Beast is a 4.6, and then the Wrathlord, I think, is a 4.2. So they're both pretty wide, and I had a 70 millimeter rim on the front and then 100 millimeter rim on the rear. So the rear is just a paddle. It's a super wide footprint.
Yeah, when you had your rear was aired down pretty low, you were probably close to like 5 psi or like 7 or something.
Yeah, it's definitely below 10.
But riding behind you, yeah, it was just like an 8-inch wide track on the trail from your tire. Just this fat footprint.
Yeah, the tire pressure, I don't really kind of measure my tire pressure. I go by feel, just because I think it's easier to like kind of go off of like put your thumb on the tire and kind of press in, or put your palm on it and see like how spongy is it, or when you pedal, you can kind of feel like that bounciness in the tire, so you kind of know like how low is it or how firm is it. But I think it's easier for me doing it like on the side of the trail versus trying to figure out like, 6 psi or 4 psi is the perfect number. It's like just kind of ride by feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then on my Blackborough, I had 70 millimeter rims, front and rear, so the same on the back and the front. And then in the front, I have a Wrathchild, which is a 4.6 tire, full studs. And then in the rear, what do I have on there? The
Dillinger 5?
Yes, that's what I was running, and that was fully studded too. So that's a 4.6-inch tire as well. And so I want to get as much flotation as I can, get the widest tire on there. I like having studs front and rear because I'm riding a cargo bike. I'm not a weight weenie. I don't care about having extra studs on there. I'd rather have it when I need it than get into a position where it's really icy and slick and then I'm screwed. So I just always run that. And tire pressure, same thing. I kind of go off of feel. I like to start the race at a little bit higher pressure, especially with it being hard pack. And then I bled some air out at the first stop on my rear tire just so I could get a little bit better traction digging in and float a little bit better. But I was probably just under 10 PSI maybe.
Yeah, I started out way too low of pressure. I could have aired mine up a little bit. I don't know why I didn't. I was expecting Tuscobia. That's where my head was, really soft, shitty snow. So I was just planning for it, but it ended up being really nice. And speaking of which, that goes into the third question. Besides your rain gear, how did your kit different from your Tuscobia setup?
So rain gear wasn't a necessity. With Tuscobia, I brought a lot of extra layers because it was going to be wet, so I wanted dry stuff to change into. So I didn't bring nearly as many layers. I always wear kind of the same base layer. I had just chamois, like bibs on underneath, and a tank top that breathes really well. And then my 45 North Knotvin pants over my bibs. Oh, and long underwear. And then 45 North Knotvin pants. And then I had a long sleeve wool on, and then my Knotvin jacket. And that was what I was wearing. And then just like a hat, and I don't think I had a buff on. Really.
You had like a full face balaclava?
Yeah, it was the balaclava. And then I had, an extra balaclava. I had an extra pair of gloves. I had an extra wool long sleeve.
An extra set of everything, basically.
Yeah, and 2 pairs of socks.
Yeah.
Because my feet always sweat and get wet. And granted, your boot liners get wet, so you put on dry socks, and then once you stick your foot back in your boot, they get wet again. But it's nice once you get to a checkpoint just to strip the wet stuff off and put on dry socks, because while you're just sitting there for that hour, it's nice.
You don't want to get that trench foot.
Trench foot.
Yeah, mine was pretty much the same. Like starting out at the beginning of the race, it was pretty identical to what I had for Tuscobia, because I had the Torvald jacket, the super lightweight, thin one. I had Surly Merino wool long sleeve, and then I had a Louis Garneau kind of skin tight tank top, and then regular cycling shorts with chamois. And then I guess I did have long underwear as well. I didn't have long underwear for Tuscobia, but then I had the Knotvin pants. Those are nice just because they're, waterproof and they're pretty thick. And my boots, I had the Wolfgars. Those I also had for Tuscobia just because they're bomb proof basically.
Yeah, those are really nice. And the removable liners, the wool liners. So when we were at Tuscobia, we pulled the liners out to dry them off. Mm-hmm. Didn't do that at this race just because we were feeling pretty good with it, but changed socks and stuff. But the Wolfgars were super nice for these conditions.
And then this kind of goes into the same long lines with Tuscobia, but how would you compare, or can you compare Tuscobia with Arrowhead as much as you can? I know they're very different races, but as best as you can.
Well, I guess with Tuscobia, we'll say we're comparing the 160 to the 135.
Yeah.
The sleep deprivation is the same. I mean, trying to ride your bike and stay awake for that long of a period of time, that doesn't get easier with either one. That's my biggest hurdle, is trying to deal with being tired on the bike.
Oh, yeah?
You can't bike when you're asleep, man. And then, what was the question? The biggest way they differ?
Yeah, comparing them to.
Oh, yeah. Arrowhead was nice because it keeps you mentally aware because the trail's constantly changing and it kind of goes by quicker. Tuscobia, you're just in this rhythm and just going, and you don't get to coast on any downhills. You don't get a break from biking. With Arrowhead, at least there were some downhills where we could coast and give your legs a break. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, the terrain is changing, the scenery is changing. With Tuscobia, it's kind of the same thing.
I think Tuscobia brings on a different set of challenges because it is such a boring trail.
It's more of a mental challenge.
Yeah, you got to be really mentally strong to kind of persevere that monotonous, pedaling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with Arrowhead, you just have to be accepting of the hills and the cold and managing your layers, I think.
And because Arrowhead, it always changes like constantly. There's like low spots where we go through some bogs and swamps and stuff, and all the cold air settles into these low points on the course, and everybody talks about how you'll get to this bog before Mel George and it's going to be 10 degrees colder than everywhere else. So expect that, and you don't get that with Tuscobia because it's the same elevation the whole way.
Right.
And you also get more places to stop along the way because there's a lot more highway crossings, gas stations,
Towns.
Tuscobia, they encourage you to stop in at a bar and get a burger. They encourage you to go to a gas station and patronize the local
establishments.
just to bring money into it. And at Arrowhead, if you go into any place that's not a checkpoint, you're disqualified. You're not allowed to get outside help. You're not allowed to go into any establishments.
They want you to be completely alone on the trail, completely isolated.
Being isolated and that's their intent with this, is to break you.
The only help you can get is from other racers, and I think that's why everyone is so helpful. They're just like, "Are you good? Do you need any food or whatever?"
Exactly.
Also, I wanted to mention, this is a quick side note. While we were on the Arrowhead Trail, talking about how the snow is super deep, there was at one point when I was kind of falling asleep by that sleep deprivation, my front wheel kind of got off the trail, just like Tuscobia, and I fell into the side of the deep snow, and Alex looks over and he can't even see me because I'm
he was below, flush with the snow. I just saw his bike wheels.
And it was funny because earlier on in the trail, I saw a couple of those just human prints on the side of the trail.
Right.
Just oh, someone fell in. But yeah, I don't know. That just reminded me of that
then your
story.
whole pogie filled up with snow.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So my pogie was...
You were pissed. You were freaking out.
I was just that's where I hold on. I'm fucked.
Yeah, there's going to be water everywhere.
Yeah.
We ended up just flipping his bike upside down and shaking it all out.
Yeah,
and then, two goose fell out, a peanut butter sandwich, all of this other stuff inside of his pogie falls into the ground.
Yeah.
His glove liner,
all of the foods.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one, but I don't know how much. Well, we might be able to get a little bit, but I feel like we didn't get the full Arrowhead experience with how warm it was this year. But what advice would you offer now as a race veteran to a rookie wanting to take on this Arrowhead?
I get, like you're saying, we didn't really experience how gnarly this course can get given conditions. But as far as preparation, I'd say we did a good job preparing for it. And my biggest thing would be know your gear and be comfortable using it. So going out and camping when it's 0 degrees, go ride your bike for 6 hours at a time in the cold when the conditions are uncomfortable, because that's where you're going to be in this race and you're not going to have a choice. And so being able to do that beforehand and know what that feels like and what it's like being in those environments is a huge thing versus I read a lot about it and I know what to expect, but until you're in that position where it's cold out, you can't feel your fingers, and you need to fix a mechanical on your bike and dig through your pack to get to your tool to fix the mechanical, you're not going to know what to expect.
And adding on to that too, I think it's also important to mention the preparation is huge, but you don't want to overanalyze everything. You don't want to overthink it.
Right.
You just roll with the punches. It's just kind of go with the flow a little bit. That helps, just not getting in your own head, just kind of riding with it. If you've done the experience, you've done your homework, you've done the training, and then when you're in the midst, you're in the shit and you're, dead and fatigued, you're accepting of this is it. That was one thing too I wanted to mention. I think this race was a lot better mentally. I didn't, wasn't
right.
dying and screaming and,
Well, and you got to ride for this too. You didn't have your ankle injury, so you were a little bit better off.
Yeah, I was way more prepared.
That's the other thing with my concussion. I wasn't commuting by bike to work. I wasn't riding on the weekends. I rode twice in the 2 weeks before race day, and they were short, really easy rides. And so I was kind of in Ian's boat of Tuscobia, where I was I I feel strong, I put the miles in, but 2 weeks before this, I haven't ridden at all, just to try to recover and rest as much as I could. But luckily it ended up working out okay.
Did it make it easier or harder for you to ride with your brother?
I think the confidence goes up because you got two people there. Being out there by yourself, totally isolated, would be pretty scary. You're out there. As far as pace and stuff, we ride together usually anyways, so we keep a pretty similar rhythm and pace. It's not like one of us is waiting up for the other. So I think that works out really well. I don't think it's a huge negative detriment other than like some points where one of us is like really down and just like pissed about it. The other one's like,
Having
no,
a
I
good
got
time.
energy. I can keep like
Right.
that last 10-mile stretch. I could have pulled away and kept going, but it's like, I don't give a shit. I just want to get to the finish. Like whenever we get there. But that's the only thing. Sometimes when one of us is bonking and the other one could carry a pace, maybe.
Right. Well, I think part of it though, like it just end up in a wash anyways, like because
Right.
we both have those low points at different times.
Exactly.
We would end up at the same time anyways because we'd be going slower, faster.
Exactly.
And I think it does help to have that person to talk to or like someone to just go off of.
Yep.
But having that communication, that conversation definitely helps quite a bit. But doing it alone, I feel like would be, I don't know. I'm kind of curious what it would be like. You'd be completely isolated. You get way up
Well,
in
a lot
your
of
head.
people have headphones, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't listen to anything until the last hour or two, and so we're just out there in the silence. And you stop out there, and it is dead silent. It's crazy. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a little scary. Just like what's out
Like
there.
no animals, no wind, just nothing.
Just like where are we? We're not in where is it?
Not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
I'm in danger.
All right. The next one is will you go back?
So in the middle of the race, we were both just like, why are we like, I don't want to do another winter ultra. This stupid, especially doing 2 back-to-back month to month. It's so hard and it hurts so bad. And then there was a point where I was just like, I don't know if I want to do these races anymore. And then like, you know, even the next day when we woke up, I was like, I'm going to do it again. I don't know if it's going to be next year, but I'm going to do it again. Because it's like, you can do it unsupported. You can do these. And it's like, there's other things to check off. And also, like we were saying, this was a really high finish rate year. 72 people finished out of the, let's see here. 78 started and 72 finished. So usually it's more like
biking category.
just biking. Yep, just biking. And usually that's closer to 50%. And so this year was really, really high. And so I feel like we need to do it when, or at least I want to do it on a year when there's
Negative 40.
the real experience. Because I don't know if I can do that. Like that's the
Yeah.
test, you know?
I think we can do it, but I don't think we're going to be able to. Well, we might be able to do it in 22 hours. Who knows?
If it's super hard packed, like pavement.
Yeah.
Get more speed on the downhills, carry it up the uphills more.
All right. This is the last question. I think it's a good one to wrap everything up with. What's next?
Well, that's up for debate.
Spilled beans. I don't know.
We've been thinking about doing this thing called the Everest Challenge, where you pick a hill and you bike up and down it until you've climbed the elevation of Mount Everest, which is about 28,000 feet. But after doing this, we might push that back. It's going to happen at some point, but that we don't know exactly when.
We wanted to do it in the winter because we're like, yeah, let's do real Everest conditions. Like, let's be hardcore, dude. And now we're just like, how about we do it in the summer?
I'm broken. Need to put my pieces back together before I do those things again.
But so there's Everesting, and then there's a High Roller Society, which is kind of a separate but same, where instead of doing the amount of Everest, you climb 10,000 meters, which is like 33,000 feet or something. And so we
in one go.
Yeah, in one ride. And we were talking, we're like, well, if we're going to do 28,000, we might as well do the extra 5 to get the big one. I mean, why not? It's only extra 5,000 feet.
Yeah, and we're not talking about the Zwift challenge.
This is an outside activity.
Yeah. No trainers in this house.
That's funny. No trainers in this house. But yeah, so I don't know. That's about it for what's next. I mean, recover and keep riding. There's the Order of the Rim Thurs. That would be cool to get, where you got to do all 3 of those races in one season.
Yeah.
So it's Tuscobia, Arrowhead, and then Aptic Epica.
Yeah, Active Epica.
Yeah,
And so that one's in Canada in...
it's February.
Yeah, so that's Tuscobia December, Arrowhead January, Active in February, and you have to finish all 3 of them in one season, and you don't know what the conditions are going to be. And so if you finish all 3 in one season, you get this like prestigious award for the Order of the Rim Thurs, which are like the Norwegian gods of frost or something like that. And it's a pretty cool thing. And we were talking to one guy that's done it a handful of times. He's like, well, you already did the 2, like just sign up for this one in February. And it's like, well, Ian doesn't have a passport and I don't want to. So
using me as an excuse.
No, even if you had a passport, I'd be like, no. But it would be cool to do, and we've already knocked out 2 of them this season. So it's like, if it's looking like a milder winter, maybe this is the year to do it.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed. That was a little bit longer, but I think...
No, that was good. And then, yeah, it was nice having the questions just to go through some of the technical stuff that we have on our bikes and that kind of thing. Shout out to 45 North for helping us out with gear and tires and stuff, and giving us what we need to be able to take on these kind of races.
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing too with our pogies. Like, you had just the rate liners on for a while, or did you have
just the first bit to Gateway, and then I was wearing the Sturmfist 5s.
Oh, okay. I had the knock-in gloves for pretty much the whole race, and that worked really well until I think it was like Surly or just before Surly. I put on the Sturmfist 4s, or Sturmfist, the Sturmfist 4s, the blue ones that have like a lobster fingers.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you listening. This is pretty cool that I've had a lot of support with these couple episodes about these races, and I mean, maybe we'll have to do another one the next...
Yeah, well, if we end up doing Dam Day Across Minnesota, we did it last summer. It's 240 miles in 24 hours.
Yeah.
From South Dakota to Wisconsin. We'll have to do a report on that.
There's a couple other races, too, that we have that would be fun to do some reports.
We got a few irons in the fire.
But I really hope this inspired you to get out and ride your bike. I mean, that'd be cool.
Do it. Ride in the winter, ride in all weather. Get familiar with your gear, and don't let the weather stop you.
Yeah. So one last thing. Make Happiness podcast. I wanted to touch on this quick. Like, with all these races and all the stuff we're doing, we do, like, it's, self-induced pain, self-induced suffering, but we do enjoy it. Like, there's a reason we're doing these events, and there's a reason we're doing all this kind of stuff.
And that's kind of like what I was alluding to when we were out on the course, and I was just pissed and talking about, like, why do we do these things? And then, a day goes by, and then I was like, yeah, I'll do it again, but maybe not next year, but I'm gonna do it again. Because a day goes by, you reflect on it, you think about all the conversations you had with people, you think about all the cool scenery you got to see and experience, and all of the experiences and
the people, the volunteers, the memories.
Exactly, all of it. And that's what makes it worthwhile. It's just this insane camaraderie between all the different racers out there, all the different disciplines. It's not like you're at a skate park and there's bikers and skaters and scooters, and they're like, oh, get out of my way, you biker, I'm on a skateboard, and like this hatred between them. Everybody out there's got the same mentality. Everybody's on the same team. Everybody's trying to get to that same finish line, and everybody's trying to push every other racer to get to that finish line.
And when you get to that finish line, it's such a exceptional like feeling of accomplishment. To like when we were packing up our bikes and putting our stuff in the trailer, someone had just finished that morning, and this was maybe like 10:30 or 11 in the morning. We're leaving to go drive back home, and someone's just crossing the finish line. He's dead tired, he's destroyed, and I'm just like, welcome to Tower. He just looks up and grins, and he's just like, thanks, man. He's just so happy to be there.
That ecstasy when you cross the finish line, you just reach a state of happiness that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, but cool. Well, that's it.
Maybe not a state of happiness, a state of satisfaction.
Yeah, it's
let me rephrase.
It's a comfort, a kind of calmness, like a excitement that you're done. It's a good feeling to finish these things and look back and say, yeah, I fucking did that.
And now it is done.
But cool. Well, always remember, make some happiness, and I hope to maybe see you out there on the trail.